Hive, welcome back to the Dystopian Book Club, where we're digging back into Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury classic, and shout out to Spark Notes and Book Caps. I did use some of the information on those pages just to help put together some of the structures and some of my notes here. A few other sources. The copy of Fahrenheit 451 I have has a lot of interviews in the back and in the front, and you get perspective from a lot of different people. So I use some of that as well. And since we're jumping back in here, Fahrenheit 451 was published in 1953. It's a dystopian novel by Ray Bradbury that paints a bleak picture of a society where books are banned and firemen burn any they found. So that's as much of the summary I was going to give. We did not get very far last time, and that's okay, right? It's not a race or anything like that when you're going through the books. The book itself really only had 3 parts, but the summary I'm using splits each part into sections. So part 1, as we're going through it, we split it into 5 sections. We made it to part 1, checking my notes, section 3. So we did not get very far, and that's okay. It's not a race. I think we just jump into it here. We've got part 1, section 4, and we're calling section 4 the portion in the book where Montague and Mildred are in bed to Beatty's arrival. So we'll kind of just jump in and start talking through that. I know it's a quick introduction to where we're at.
So he's already attended the fire with the lady, and he took the book home with him.
I believe so. Yeah, I know it's been 2 weeks. I'm looking back. I think so.
Yeah, because then Beatty comes and tries to get him out of his funk.
Right. Yeah, because he's asking whether fireman's job was ever to prevent and put out fires. Then they talked about Benjamin Franklin, his book about Firemen of America. Right. I think that was first seen in the fire station through burning the old woman on Elm Street, Nightmare on Elm Street there. So that is correct. That's a good call out. It's been a couple weeks, and this was 2 books ago for me now. At this point, I finished Fahrenheit. Finished Slaughterhouse 5, and now I'm reading 1984 because I figured we'd do Slaughterhouse 5 then 1984. Yeah.
Oh man, I wish I could just jump to 1984.
Skip. She's not loving Slaughterhouse 5.
No.
Did you start Slaughterhouse 5 yet?
No, I forgot what it was called. I'm gonna
that's okay.
Yeah.
We could skip it if you guys want. There was someone that had commented on one of the book clubs wanting to join the book club but couldn't handle Slaughterhouse 5. I know Janet's not loving Slaughterhouse 5.
No, and I did it on an audiobook, and James Franco is reading it, and I love me some James Franco, man.
Yeah.
And I still
can't.
Still hate it. And he's even the one narrating it.
We could skip it if you guys want. It depends. Have you already? So
they say.
Right.
That's what he says the whole book.
I thought it was good. And we can pause this really quick and kind of. It is certainly an anti-war book. It does not glorify war in any way. It follows someone that fought in World War II, was actually a POW. And he had a lot of bad experiences, as you can imagine, and that affected the rest of his life and his mental health. But it is kind of a tough.
I mean, I just don't like the way he writes.
Yeah,
it's hard because I just don't care for the way he writes.
Okay, all right, yeah. We could talk about it after if we want to do Slaughterhouse 5, or I'm fine skipping it. The idea would be maybe 19.
I mean, it's up to you. I'll listen to it because James Franco is speaking.
Yeah.
I'll muddle through it.
Leave it up to you, Jay. What would you prefer?
If there's someone who's wanting to join the book club but they want to wait till after, I mean, maybe we could skip it. But 1984 is such a big book.
That is a big one. It's a huge book. Yeah, it's going to take a while. Yeah. Yeah, maybe we do Slaughterhouse 5.
No, I can keep
and then just have kind of that filler time.
That's an easy book.
Yeah, it's an easy book. It does take a while. I'm going through 1984, and I feel like I'm like studying every page because it's such a seminal book. I'm
Yeah.
reading it really slowly, like making sure I get everything on every page. And there's a
Right.
lot.
There's someone
There's so much
scanning you
there.
for thought crimes.
Right. They're thought
Yeah.
crime in me. Yeah,
Yeah.
as I'm going through it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Face crime, thought crime. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going through all of it.
Yeah.
All right, so then we will. Let's do Slaughterhouse
We'll do
5.
Slaughterhouse
It's a
5.
classic. It's one of those books.
I'll listen to James.
Right. Listen to James Franco read it to you as you got the Ronas.
Right. Read to me, James.
All right.
It'll
Okay.
be
All
it'll
right.
be interesting
Yeah.
to hear, Janet, like why it's not reading, like what makes it an easy read and what's making it a hard read. That'll be interesting to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, there's just something about the way he's putting his words together that I
You
just
having a hard
I
time.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on the struggle bus and I'm on chapter
Right.
2.
Chapter 2, yeah. It honestly, it is a good book, but
I'll give it time.
It was not a bad book at all. I don't want to give away too much, but
I'll do it.
you know, it's got
Yeah,
aliens
cool.
in it. It's got some
Right.
alien abduction
Ooh.
stuff in it.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, right.
We need to get to the aliens.
Right,
so.
he gets abducted by aliens. I'll give that away. I mean,
For
that's
real?
for real. I'm not joking. He gets abducted by aliens. I mean,
Wow.
it's all in there.
Nice.
It's all in that
Okay.
book. It is all in there.
All right, fine.
Alien abduction and
Well,
everything.
obviously, I haven't given this enough time. Though.
Right. All right. So back to Fahrenheit 451.
Great.
Okay, so Montauk and Mildred in bed to Beatty's arrival. So when Montauk gets home, he conceals the book. He's stolen beneath his pillow. While in bed, Mildred becomes very odd and seems unfamiliar to him. She talks incessantly about the TV and the family she finds there.
It's her relatives.
It's her relatives. He lies down in his own separate bed. He asks her to remind him of where they first met 10 years earlier,
Yeah.
but neither of them is able to remember. Mildred gets out of her bed and heads to the bathroom to get some sleeping pills. Montauk attempts to keep track of the number of
It's my
times.
birthplace. They met in my birthplace.
What was that?
Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. Okay.
They said at
Okay.
the end of the book.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Montauk attempts to keep track of the number of times he hears her
course.
swallow, and he wonders if she might forget to take more later. So then once again, I think either he's keeping track of how many pills she took or he's worried. He's worried she's going to overdose again. So he was like counting the pills.
Mhm.
He has a feeling of terrible emptiness and thinks the TV walls are separating him from his wife. He ponders her TV family and thinks about his sensational images and false connections. He communicates to Mildred that he hasn't come across Clarice for 4 days and asks if she had heard of what happened to her. Mildred says the family
She's
moved
like,
somewhere.
Oh, yeah, that
Right.
girl.
Right, and believes Clarice was hit
Yeah.
by a car and is dead. So that's where he
Mhm.
found out. Because on the last time we got together, someone was saying they thought Clarice might have been imaginary,
Yeah.
and I thought she might have been imaginary. But this sort of proves she wasn't imaginary because his wife is like, no, she's dead.
Yes, and Beatty talks about her too,
Yeah,
saying that she's been on, whoever they are,
Right.
the man's radar with her family for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Next morning,
Now, I
Montauk.
actually also thought that maybe this was just like a lie that was made up by the family because they'd been spotted and they'd moved or something. But yeah, I think she really did die. I think I was in denial about it until I think the last couple of chapters, like the last couple of pages. But
which I don't get
very
the
sad.
point. I don't get. I mean, I understand that this girl came into his life to kind of give him stoke the fire of his epiphanies.
Right.
But I mean, I guess I didn't.
Oh,
see
why kill off the character?
Yeah, why?
I think
he
it
needed
would
to
have
kill the
given
character
him.
off.
It might have given him an out because he hits this boiling point where he then sort of snaps. He goes off the rails, and I feel like maybe if she was still there as a
He wouldn't have snapped.
right, if she was still there as a
Okay.
vent, right, as a way, as a an escape.
It's a good antecedent to it. Though,
Right. I think, that was his escape from reality, was his time talking to her.
Okay.
And I think by losing that, that's where he just quickly goes off the rails.
and
Okay.
snaps.
I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
I think on that.
Well, that's a good enough reason as any.
Seems some, yeah.
Mm.
And as I said before,
Good.
I think Clarice really was Ray Bradbury writing himself into the book
Right.
based on his past experiences, going for a walk and whatnot.
Based on the pre-book that was
The
about
pre-books, right? The books that were written
Yeah.
before the
Mhm.
book. I think that was actually
Mhm.
him. And jumping back to 1984, the main character in 1984 does a lot of those late night walks alone and has a lot of concerns how that's not acceptable by society, which is interesting. Because obviously that's Orwell, but same thing, Bradburn at the same time had that same ideal.
Yeah. Well, maybe it was just a sign of the times.
Sign of the times, right?
Yeah.
People out walking alone at night were up to no good.
Well, yeah, well, not everybody had their heads stuck in the internet all the time back in the day.
Yeah.
In the 80s, we played outside. In the 70s and 80s.
Outside. Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Next morning, Montauk feels sick. Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Oh,
No,
okay.
all good.
Okay. No, all right. No worries.
Thanks. Sorry.
Next morning, you're all right. No problem. He vomits because of the lasting smell of kerosene. He tells Mildred what happened with the old woman and asks whether she would object if he left his job for a while. He urges her to try to understand the feelings of guilt, feels about burning the old woman with her books, and says the book represents the lives and works of many people. Mildred, however, won't listen. Montauk tries to gain Mildred's attention by insisting that they discuss books and asking what the last time when someone said was when something bothered her, but she doesn't respond. The argument comes to an end when the couple sees Captain Beatty approaching up the front walk. So that's kind of part 1, section 4.
Yeah, I mean, Mildred was really, I mean, she was 100% into this society.
Yeah.
You know, and she didn't want him to stop working because she wanted wall 4 of the parlor.
Right. She needed the money to finish finish the virtual reality room.
Yeah.
Right. That is true.
She needed to finish off her big live TV.
Yeah.
And then even later, like we see how all her friends, it's like they match in with the society, like you said.
Yeah.
They were like Stepford wives.
Oh, her?
They all were.
Yeah.
They all just were like, like zero
Mm.
affect and just kind of like robotically going about their business.
Right.
And that's
into the
to
internet
me
all the
what
time.
it reminded me of.
Very much.
All right. So moving part 1, section 5. This was Beatty's visit through the end of Hearth and the Salamander, which is the official end of part 1. Captain Beatty stops to check on Montauk. He says that he guessed that Montauk would be sick today and not coming to work. He informs Montauk that every fireman at some point deals with the problem that he's experiencing. He goes on to tell him about the history of the profession. There are almost hysterical qualities about Beatty's monologue and the way he suddenly jumps from one thing to another with no explanation of the connection causes can be very difficult to follow and understand the history it presents. Now, I know you've got some deep analysis, Jay, on one of Montauk's dialogues, but I think that's later in the book, right? I think this is
the fire station.
Yeah, this is still early in the book. And we sort of speculated last time that the Hound was already on to Montauk.
I think that Beatty programmed the Hound for Montauk in the beginning.
Right, way before. Yeah.
Like when he went to go pet him and it raised its
right, the little scorpion tail.
Its little scorpion tail. I think it was already tuned into him.
Right. Yeah. And whether someone saw him take the book or not, I think they already knew that he had books.
Yes.
Right. Seemed to be the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I was at this point, I thought maybe Beatty was maybe sympathetic to what Montague was going through at this point in the book.
Yeah,
I thought,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's like, hey, happens to everybody at some point. Someone steals a book. Yeah.
Beatty's so well versed, though.
Right.
For a man who doesn't believe in books.
Right. He's read them
reading
all.
books. It seems like he's read them all and can quote them.
Right.
So, and in order to quote something, you've had to read it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how many books is he hiding?
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what made me think that maybe he was on the same level as Montague.
Right.
Yeah, we go through and find out he wasn't. Spoilers.
Well, yeah.
He's not.
Right. He's sort of not. Yeah. And we're seeing that. I'm seeing that just going back through 1984. He's trying to figure out who's going to be on his side, and I think he gets it completely wrong. And it's sort of the same thing here. Like, hey, you like books too, secretly. We could be rebels
Which
together.
is the whole you can't trust anybody.
Right, trying to figure out who are the dissidents.
Yeah.
A component of the story is that television, film, and photography presented the possibility of presenting information in a visual way that was quick and easy to digest. And this caused the more reflective and slower process of reading books to become less popular. Other elements of its argument is that the growth of literacy, as well as the huge increase in the number of published materials available, caused there to be pressure for books to be more similar to one another and easier to read, such as Reader's Digest condensed books. In conclusion, Beattie claims that special interest groups and minorities found such a large number of things in books to be objectionable that people finally decided to give up on debate and begin burning books.
Well, we see a lot of people objecting a lot of stuff.
A lot of objection nowadays. Yeah, we're sort of getting to this if we're not already there. Yeah, a lot of objections nowadays.
It gave me chills because I was like, I could just see what's happening in our society these days with the condensed versions and the trivializing of, and the contention. Yeah, it gave me chills.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as we talked about, like here, we're reading the books. I know on this, we're doing a summary because you can't really read the entire book live. That would be a lot of hours. But reading the books, and people don't really read the books anymore. And that falls into the Fahrenheit 451 story, which is if it doesn't matter if the books are there, if no one reads them, you hit a point where no one reads anymore. And it's all just the TV and the virtual reality and the internet and all that stuff coming in, and people they're not bothering to read the books anymore anyway. That's why we're here. Yeah. That's why we're here.
To read to the masses.
To read to the masses. Right.
All right.
All right. Mildred's attention span comes up short when Beattie is talking, and she gets up and starts straightening the room in an absent-minded way. In doing this, she discovers the book hidden behind Montauk's pillow and attempts to bring attention to it. Montauk screams at her, telling her to sit down. Beattie gives the impression he doesn't notice and continues talking. He says that the public eventually wanted material that was uncontroversial and provided easy pleasure. This led to printed materials becoming dumbed down to the point that only sex magazines, trade journals, and comic books survived. Beattie said that after every house was fireproofed, the job of firemen changed from preventing and putting out fires to the new goal of burning books that could help people improve spiritually, intellectually, and practically, therefore possibly making others feel inferior. Which, once again, I think we see that, right? That line where he says, we got to burn books that might help people improve spiritually, intellectually, practically, and thereby making others feel inferior. So if you read books, you're going to be better than those that don't, and we can't have that. Right. It's kind of that no self-improvement is allowed. You couldn't do that because someone might feel inferior because they haven't.
Well, that's on that person.
Right. But our society also seems to be kind of moving in that direction to a certain extent as well. It seems like kind of that lowest common denominator sometimes.
Is that also where
dumb down?
Is that also the way that the like you were saying, Janet, where they go, if you want someone happy politically, don't give him both sides or something like that. Oh, I forget that quote. I had it written down. Where it goes, you get someone happy politically, you give them the idiot version of it and don't go into any more deeper.
Right.
Politics.
Right.
Don't give them all the details because you don't want them to see both sides.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then they might see what's wrong with both sides or what's right with both sides.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And there was the part,
Did
no,
your
you're
kitty
fine.
get you?
You're all right. Yeah, no, it's okay.
I knew it.
Pet breaks are always allowed. Pet breaks are allowed.
Yeah.
You're okay. Yeah.
Like, excuse me. Excuse me.
Yeah. And this point, Beattie was in the room and Montauk was trying to hide the book, and his wife was like, "Oh, look, hidden book." She didn't want her to have her house burnt down, and maybe she sort of knew, or at least thought, that he was hiding books. And obviously, Beattie knows he's hiding books.
I think Mildred was absolutely oblivious to anything that was going on in the outside world.
Yeah,
I think
she was so jacked in.
I think all she cared about was her relatives. Like the relatives is what they call to the people on her shows.
The family.
Her friends, and not really what's going on with her friends. Just like they were almost like trying to show each other up, like Keeping Up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, she obviously hated her life. She tried to kill herself.
She did, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't
generally
think
not a good sign.
Yeah, I think she was oblivious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Montague inquires how a person such as Clarice could possibly exist, and Beatty explains that the firemen have been monitoring the family because they defied the homogenization of the school system. Beatty states that they maintained a file on the odd behavior of the McClellans for several years, and Clarice, is lucky to be dead. Don't know why I couldn't say that one that time. Yeah, so basically they've been tracking them, and
they stopped. She wasn't allowed to go to school anymore.
Wasn't allowed to
so
go
she
to
had a
school anymore.
homeschool.
And we may have already passed that point, but they described school as obviously no books. It seemed like no education.
Right.
The kids were just like
I'm
out
sure
running
kids
wild
love
all the
going to
time.
school then.
Right. The kids were like running wild all the time.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact quotes, but they went to like some junkyard where you could wreck stuff, and it was all this super antisocial kind of behavior was what school was all about.
Yeah.
I think.
I guess they're just trying to teach
that.
them how to fit into this odd society of not caring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going with their destructive
See what
side.
happens when you don't read, kids?
Yeah.
I think that's
All right.
the theme.
When you don't. Go kids.
All right. Beatty pushes Montague not to forget how much of an important role he and the other firemen play in the world's happiness. He informs him that every fireman develops a curiosity about books sooner or later. He explains it's because he has read some books himself that he was able to assert that they are both contradictory and useless. Montague asks him what the consequences would be if a fireman inadvertently brought a book home with him. Beatty responds that he would be hypothetically, right, asking for a friend.
just in case I stuffed a whole bunch of books in my ceiling somewhere.
Right.
I wonder if the dog could smell it.
Yeah. All right. Beatty responds that he would be permitted to retain it for 24 or 48 hours, but after that, the other fireman would arrive to burn it. Beatty starts to get ready to leave and asked if Montague could come to work later. Montague says that he may do that. He just said he may do, but he secretly decides, however, never to go there again. Once Beatty has left, Montague informs Mildred that he no longer wishes to work at the fire station. He shows her about 20 books that he's kept secretly and that they have been concealed in the ventilator. Panicking, she attempts to burn them. He stops her from doing this. Montague wants to look through them at least once, and he requires her assistance. He searches the books for a reason why he is so unhappy. It seems that he's been stealing books for quite a while. Mildred finds the books frightening, but Montague wants her to be involved in his search. He asks her to give him 48 hours of support in helping him look through the books in the hope of discovering something viable that they'll be able to share with others. Someone arrives at the door, but Montague and his wife don't answer. Later, revealed the second visitor was the mechanical hound. And Montague begins reading a copy of Gulliver's Travels. So that's what we were talking about. Is the hound was already on him.
I haven't read Gulliver's Travels since high school.
Long time. I don't think it's dystopian, but it's a good book. Maybe a little dystopian. No, I don't think dystopian, but I want to read For Whom the Bell Tolls. Probably not dystopian, but that's Hemingway. So I read Orwell's firsthand account in the Spanish Civil War. He served. He was a anarchist and fought for the POUM during the Spanish Civil War.
Wow.
Hemingway apparently was also in the Spanish Civil War, which I didn't know that. He was an American journalist, and he wrote For Whom the Bell Tolls. So I want to read that one. I bought it on the Kindle, downloaded it.
One? Hemingway has so many.
I know. I'm just fascinated by the Spanish Civil War,
okay.
Especially having read Orwell's account as an anarchist. So here you got Orwell and Hemingway were both in the Spanish Civil War. So I just thought it was interesting. But also probably not dystopian, but it's just on my Kindle. I already downloaded it, so just waiting for a chance to read it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know too much more to go into on that, other than Beatty already knows he's got the books. His wife knows he's got the books. he has 48 hours in his mind to get in and learn as much as possible, and that's
Right.
yeah.
I was
I'm
shocked
surprised
that
he's-
he had.
I'm surprised he hasn't ever looked through them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He was hiding him and stashing him. He's afraid to look at him.
Mm. Was almost doing instinctually, even like, I know that these are important.
Yeah, right. Saving them because they're important, but too afraid.
Did he have the Bible?
He did have the Bible. Yeah, that comes up. Yeah.
But yeah, I was surprised when he started and they were just kept dropping. I thought
Right.
we already knew he had something packed there because it alluded to it, but I thought maybe one or two, and he just keeps
right now
dropping
it's just
them
like waterfall coming down.
And all the books are here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what her face was probably like?
Yeah.
They're gonna burn our
We're
house
gonna
down.
die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, buddy. They're gonna burn the house down.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So next one, we go to part 2. Let's see. I have part 1. Oh, okay. Yeah. So the title of part 1 was Hearth and the Salamander. So the conjunction of images, you've got the hearth is a fireplace, traditional symbol of the home. The salamander is one of the official symbols of the firemen, as well as the name they gave their fire trucks. Both of these symbols have to do with fire, the dominant image of Montague's life. The hearth because it contains the fire that heats the home, and the salamander because the ancient beliefs that it lives in fire and is unaffected by flames. So that was some of the notes I've got on part 1. All right, so part 2 is the sieve and the sand. And that I have split into 2 parts. The opening through Montague's visit with Faber. You guys know?
I would say Faber.
I'll try
But
to do
I do
Faber.
long A's all the time.
Okay. And then from Montague's visit with Faber through the end of the sieve and the sand. All right, so this is part 2, and we could call it's got 2 parts. We'll say section 6 because part 1 we ended on section 5. You could say part 2, part 1 if you want, but we're going to call it part 2, section 6. From the opening through Montague's visit with Faber, do you know why books such as these are so important? Because they have quality. And what does the word quality mean? To me, it means texture. The book has pores. So Montague spends the afternoon reading with Mildred. The mechanical clown arrives at the door and sniffs around. Montague thinks about the things that made Clarissa unique. Mildred refuses to discuss a dead person, says that she prefers enjoying her TV's pretty colors and people to reading books. Montague believes the books must in some way be able to assist him out of his ignorance, but he fails to understand the material he's reading. He realizes that he needs a teacher. He remembers an afternoon one year before when he came across an elderly former English professor called Faber in the park. It was clear that Faber had been reading poetry when Montague arrived. The professor had attempted to conceal the book and flee. However, Montague assured him that he was safe, and they talked. Faber gave him his phone number and address. Montague now decides to call the professor. He asks how many copies of works by Plato and Shakespeare and the Bible are still in the country. Faber suggests that Montague wants to trap him. He says there are none left, and he hangs up his phone. So he's reaching out, right?
Hey, he's reaching out, but he's reaching out to somebody, and he's a fireman. So
Right, he's a fireman.
this guy's like, "You're not getting me, sucker."
Right, the cop like, hey, can I buy some drugs? Seriously,
Right.
I'm a cop, but I just want to buy some drugs here.
Right.
Personal use, not going to bust you.
Right.
That kind of thing, right? He's the wrong
He's
guy.
trying to pull that on him, and the guy's
Right.
like, "I don't think so. I don't even know what books are."
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, we don't have books here. Like, no, this is for me personally, not as a fireman.
Yeah.
How many Bibles do you got? Right. So Montague returns to his books. He realizes that one of the books he took from the old woman was what could be the last copy of the Bible to exist. He thinks about giving a substitute to Beatty, who is already aware he has a minimum of 1 book. However, he suddenly recognizes that Beatty knows which book he stole. The chief will realize that he has an entire library if he gives him a different one.
I don't know. I dropped Oliver's Travels before the Bible.
Right. Yeah.
And I think these people need some Jesus right now.
Yeah. He decides that he will get a duplicate made. Mildred informs him that a number of her friends will be visiting to watch TV with her. Montauk, who is still attempting to make a connection with her, poses the rhetorical question of whether the family she sees on TV loves her. She is dismissive of the question. Montauk travels on the subway to Faber's house. While on the way, he tries to commit verses of the Bible to memory. He's distracted by a jungle of Denham's dentifrice toothpaste. A jingle, sorry.
Oh my God, yeah, that jingle. That
Yeah,
was
the
on.
jingle. Yeah. Dentifrice toothpaste, can't speak to me. Eventually he stands up in front of everyone there and shouts at the radio, telling it to shut up and waving around his book. A guard is called by the shocked passengers. Montauk gets away by alighting at the next stop. So he's on the bus. Was it the bus, the subway?
Well, it's the train.
On
the L.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah. On the train, and he's got his book. He's reading the Bible. He's yelling at everybody. He went full crazy person there. Yeah.
Sounds like being in
Like
downtown
Higgins.
Chicago.
Right. Yeah. That's another day in Chicago there, riding the train, some crazy person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. The L in downtown Chicago right there.
The subway. It was the subway. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. All right. Montauk reaches Faber, shows him the book, and this makes Faber less fearful of him. He asks Faber to help him understand what he reads. Faber states that Montauk doesn't understand the real reason why he's unhappy and is only supposing that it is related in some way to the books, as their only elements he knows for certain are gone.
Right, he's missing something, but he doesn't know what he's missing.
He's just unhappy now.
Yeah.
Clarice kind of opened his eyes. He realized his life was bad.
He realized that he's just he's a robot, just walking through life, not paying it.
Yeah.
He didn't even know what the moon looked like or the stars.
Right.
People forgot to look up and see nature.
Yeah. All right. Oh, where'd I go? So Faber says it's not the books in themselves that Montauk wants, but rather the meaning that they offer. Well, the same kind of meaning could be incorporated into existing media, such as radio and television. People no longer want it. Faber says that through their superficial company is trying to exist on flowers rather than submit substantive dirt. He explains that people aren't willing to face life's unpleasant aspects and realities. Faber states that people need to have quality information, enough leisure time to digest it, and the freedom required to incorporate what they have learned into their lives. He explains that quality information consists of detailed in texture, knowledge of life, and understanding of the pores humanity's face. Faber concurs that with Mildred in her belief that TV gives the impression of being more real than books, but he disapproves of it because of its controlling and invasive characteristics. When one reads a book, he or she is able to put it down when he or she wants to. This gives the reader time he or she needs to think and process the information the book contains. Montauk makes the suggestion of planting books in firemen's homes in order to discredit their profession and then watching the firehouses burn. Faber doesn't believe that this would address the most important aspects of the problem. He laments that firemen aren't really required for the suppression of books. This is because the public ceased reading on its own even before the burning began. Faber asserts they must simply be patient, as the coming war will soon mean the TV families will die. Montauk comes to the conclusion that this could be used as a way to bring back books. So when we find out later at the end more about the war, but here Faber's like, dude, the big war is coming, and it just kind of rolls off, right?
I think everybody said, it was going to be one bomb and it was going to be over.
Right.
That's just how wars were, right?
Yeah.
Even when his wife's friends are all over, they're like,
no big deal.
Betty Sue's husband's been in war like 16 times, and he's never gotten hurt.
Yeah, right. Just kind of blew it off. Oh, whatever, war, no big deal. And here Faber's like, no, that's it. We're all done anyway. Yeah, he's the doomsdayer there. Say, no, it's going to wipe us all out, so don't worry about it.
Right.
And everyone else is like, no big deal, just another endless war, no problem. Everything's going to be okay. And we sort of knew what happens at the end already.
People real desensitized with that.
Right, totally desensitized.
One thing I wanted to say about,
Yeah.
They were talking about how the difference between TV and books.
Yeah.
They, as a society, they could have taken books, the rich, stories of books, and they could have turned that into television, and they chose not to.
Right.
So, that says a lot too. The fact that, she watched shows that he kept saying, what is this even about? What is this even about?
Doesn't even mean anything.
It means nothing. That they had the ability to have something that was meaningful in their parlors. They didn't want it. So even their television was just empty and useless.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And just a teaser on 1984, and it sort of applies to this, is one of the characters is one of the authors of the Newspeak Dictionary. And in it, in the part of the book I'm on, he's talking about, hey, you have good, you have the word good. And if it's really good, you don't say really good, you say plus good. And if plus good isn't enough, it's double plus good. But they got rid of excellent, and it's amazing, and it's awesome, and it's, super great. It's just good, plus good, double plus good. Right. And by reducing the vocabulary, it reduces people's creativity.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you want people to be, submissive or supplicant of the government or whatever it is that you're trying to get people to just be this kind of mindless sheep, you want to reduce the vocabulary. You want to, hey, hit them with TV, because it's just basically like eating candy bars all the time. It doesn't have the depth. Doesn't have the depth of thought. It's just, hey, action, you're in, cool, something happened, and you're through.
Yeah, it's similar to what Lotus is saying here in the comments.
Oh, yeah, TV shoot, yeah, sorry, yeah. No, I was distracted.
Quiet their inner thoughts.
Lotus, welcome.
Very similar to what you were just saying there. Like the more we reduce our vocabularies and our ability to express what's going on around us.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, thanks, Lotus. Very much like the TV was quiet. I thought devoid of meaning. Absolutely. And then sought to reduce criticism by removing the language. Yeah. Right. That could lead to those ideas. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And that was one thing they had said in 1984, which was in, 2 more versions of the Newspeak Dictionary, 10, 20 years from now, there won't even be thought crimes, because people won't have the vocabulary to have thought crimes. Right. There won't be words to produce those thoughts that would be a thought crime.
Right.
You just keep knocking words out, and then all of a sudden there's nothing. Yeah. Yeah. And then
we're getting a similar sort of thing nowadays. Like you can't say certain words, and like we've had a couple of journalists fired because they spoke up about what's going on in the Middle East there. And they were fired from their state media jobs. Wow. And this is, Australia.
Right.
So
yeah.
It's already happening.
I think that's the one thing that bothers me the most. Is when people get fired for stuff like that, or them taking stuff out of books.
Right.
I mean, Huck Finn didn't have nice words in it.
No, it had a lot of bad words in it.
It didn't. But at the time Huck Finn was written, those were the words that people used. And should we take them out? No, we shouldn't, because we should remember that as a society, we decided to treat a race of people that way and to call them that, and we should never do it again.
Right.
But 200 years from now, people aren't going to remember any of that. Because they're erasing it from society, and they're erasing it from the text. And things are going to show up as new words in a couple hundred years.
Right.
But I mean, you don't know you're wrong until you see you're wrong, and in order to see it, you have to have it there.
You have to have the example. Right. Yeah. So where are you at, Lotus, that they banned the Diary of Anne Frank?
Wow. Diary of Anne Frank was banned.
Yeah.
That was good. That was a good book.
Yeah.
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 It was one of the first novels I read.
Kind of a rebel, though.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave that up there. And let us know. And I think, Lotus, were you the one that reached out about joining the book club, but you wanted to wait until after Slaughterhouse 5?
North Carolina.
North Carolina, really?
That's good food up in North Carolina.
Okay. Interesting. All right. It didn't hold. Okay. All right. Well, I'll keep going on the book. Thank you, though. Thank you for that, guys. It's always good to break out. I don't always see the comments when I'm going through my notes here. And the suggestion of putting books in the firemen's houses was kind of an interesting idea, sort of frame everybody,
Right.
you know. But that was a long run plan, and I think Faber was like, we don't have the time for any of that stuff. Basically,
No, that was
what he was saying.
Yeah, he was like, we need to short game it, not long game it.
Yeah, we don't have the time for any of that kind of stuff. Is basically what he was saying on that. So he sort of had that feeling that something bad was coming.
But he still gave him the earpieces and sent him on his way.
Yeah.
Do you think there could be a metaphorical, like, comparison, like, instead of firemen in our society today, instead of putting books into firemen's houses to frame them, do you think there could have been a metaphorical symbology that Bradbury was alluring to, maybe? I'm not sure. Just the idea just came to me then, like
of the framing people.
Yeah, like books in politicians' houses or something, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I think for me the reality is I still think Beatty had books in his house.
Oh, he probably did.
I think he did.
Yeah. He felt
I think
like
it was
kind of
like a tongue in cheek of Beatty, like, because you're not that well versed without having books that you're reading a lot.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I was
put books in their houses.
Yeah, it wasn't until he admitted that he'd programmed the dog to Montag's thing. It wasn't until that point, that was the point that made me go, oh, he's not on their side. But because of how well read he was, I really did think he was a double agent or something, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think he was kind of a leader, and he liked Montag, and he's like, hey, we all screw up, we'll bring you back into the fold. But obviously Montag wasn't going to do that, and that's where he's like, okay, well, we're taking you down. Basically, he kind of gave that, hey, we'll pull you back in, all's forgiven, but you got to go and burn those books and come back to work. You know, And as Lotus was saying, I thought Beatty was well read. He's written so eloquently that makes it seem like he harbored books. Yeah, and that's basically what we're saying.
I feel like he did. Yeah.
That's basically kind of what we're saying right now. And I know, strangely, you've got some stuff on that. We're coming up to your spot.
Yeah, just that whole fire.
All right, you've got some great stuff on that. All right. So that was that. Push Faber out of his cowardism by tearing out pages of the Bible. He does this page by page until Faber finally says that he will help. Faber finds that he knows someone that has a printing press who once printed college newspapers. Montag requests help with Beatty that evening. And Faber provides him with a two-way radio, that little two-way radio earbud that he has made to fit in Montag's ear. This can be used to ensure the professor hears everything Beatty says. It can also be used to provide prompts to Montag. Montag describes that he will take the risk of giving a substitute book to Beatty, and Faber says that he'll make contact with the printer he knows. So that was one of the few technologies we had talked about last time, which was the two-way radio earbuds that we really don't even have that now. I mean, we got earbuds, you got the cell phone, but in the 1950s, they figured you just have just the earbuds. Keeps it in the sci-fi bracket. But as we said, the author didn't even like sci-fi. He felt it was too dystopian in his own eye, that technology would just lead to more collapse of society. But he still had it in the book. All right. So the next we're calling section 7. You could call it section 2, part 2. From after Montag's visit with Faber through the end of the sieve in the sand. So he's on his way to Beatty's, I think. Montag takes out money from his account for Faber. He listened to radio reports about the country mobilizing for war. Faber reads from the book of Job. I always get that wrong. From him over the two-way radio that's in his car. He heads home, and Miss Phelps and Miss Bowles, two of his wife's friends, come over and go to the TV parlor. After shutting off the TV walls, Montag attempts to converse with the women. They're reluctant.
It's funny.
Freak those ladies out.
He did. You're like, look at my books.
Sorry to start laughing. It's too soon.
It's okay. It's funny. Okay.
So uncomfortable, like The Office humor, you know, like it was just.
Oh my gosh, I love that show.
The Office. Yeah, she's huge
so
fan of The Office.
I was a huge Dunder Mifflin fan.
Right. All right. They're reluctant, but try to be polite. But he gets angry when they explain the way they voted in the most recent presidential election. They say that they made their decision based only on superficial qualities, such as physical appearance. The women talk about their families in cynical and detached ways. They do the same with the topic of the coming war. Montauk becomes more and more angry. Montauk shows the woman a book of poetry, ignoring their objection as well as favors, which come through the ear radio. Mildred promptly makes up a lie, claiming the fireman is permitted to bring home a single book each year to show his family how nonsensical books really are. Faber tells Montauk to say that Mildred is right. So that's sort of the part you were talking about, where he's jumping into the books and trying to freak everybody out. He's sort of lost it. He's off the rails at that point.
Right. He's shock
look at my
right
box.
now.
Look at my box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the women just don't know what to do with it. They're just like,
right.
Yeah. They just,
well, that one lady just gets so appalled and then leaves.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. So Montauk continues to persist, and he begins reading aloud the poem Dover's Beach by Matthew Arnold. A woman who has just been talking about her husband's departure for the coming war begins to cry. Miss Bowles says that her tears have been caused by the evil and emotion of the poetry. She strongly criticizes Montauk for reading it. Montauk puts the book in the incinerator. When Faber tells him to, he angrily tells Miss Bowles to go home and ponder the emptiness of her life. Yeah. Both of the women depart. Mildred goes into the bedroom. Montauk finds that his wife has been burning each of the books.
I don't think he's really approaching it the right way if he wants to bring people.
He's not trying to win hearts and minds here. Yeah,
he's not.
Yeah, he's just kind of lost it.
Yeah, he's just lost his mind.
And he hides his remaining ones in the backyard. He feels guilty for upsetting their visitors, and he wonders if they might have been right for only wanting pleasure. Faber says that if everyone in the world were perfect, he would agree that the realities of life it needs attention. Let's see. So he's about to go to the fire station here. Before he gets there, I was going to jump in. Oh, yeah. No, okay. It looks like you responded, Lotus, kind of catching up on what you got here. All the people in the book who can speak complete sentences all read books. Right? All the wives are good examples of not being well read. Almost get a Luddite feeling from the book, like technological progress leads to collapse. Seems very Luddite to me. So we had talked about that a little bit last time, and I think that is sort of Ray Bradbury. When they talk to him about technology, like when you look at the Orwell works, and this was from an interview that I had read and we talked a little bit about before. Orwell sort of poses it as a warning of this is how the world could be, right? So it's, hey, if we don't right the ship, this is the world we're going into, which will be dark and dystopian. Ray Bradbury is more of it's inevitable, right? He really did look at it as that is going to be the things that, there's sort of nothing, right? There's sort of nothing we can do. And he felt that technology would just put us into that direction. So in that sense, yeah, I mean, as far as technological progress leads to collapse, that was him, right? That was the man that wrote the book. That seemed to be what he believed. So absolutely, I mean, that would be the feeling from the book, because I think that was his intent, right? Was to give that seemed to be what he believed, was all the technology was just going to accumulate until society collapsed, was sort of my impression. But okay,
I kind of agree with that. I think actually I agree with that. I think that's just we're starting to dig our own hole, even I feel like
let's get to Jay's paper.
Right, we're almost to your thing. We're almost to your thing. Okay, yeah. No, okay, we'll get to your thing.
This is fascinating.
It's okay. I saw what you did, and that looked really good. I know I sent it to Janice. It's a shared email address, so we both saw it. Yeah. All right. So we'll skip ahead just a little bit here. He was basically walking to the firehouse. Him and Faber kind of got into it. I know I keep changing how I pronounce his name.
It's okay.
It's just how it is. It's how I do it. All right, so that was the end of part 2, The Sieve in the Sand, taken from Montauk's childhood memory of trying to fill a sieve with sand on the beach to get a dime from a mischievous cousin and crying at the futility of the task. All right, so we'll jump into part 3, Burning Bright. It's the last 3 sections of the book here, from the opening through the second visit, from after leaving Faber's house through the death of the fake Montauk, and then we'll just call it the end. All right, part 3, section 8 summary, from the opening through the second visit. So Montauk looks at Clarice's empty house. Beatty believes that he's under the influence, and he berates him. Mildred quickly comes out of Montauk's house holding a suitcase. Or did I skip it? Was it the end of?
When Beatty gives his big speech?
Yeah.
I thought that was when Montague was at the
back
firehouse with him.
Did I already pass it?
Yeah,
Goes
and
to
then
the fire
alarm
station.
comes in.
I did. Okay, no, I went too far.
His
Yeah.
house
So
comes in.
yeah. So it was the end of part 2, not the beginning of part 3.
Oh yeah.
All right. So he goes to the fire
Just
station.
before the alarm for his own house comes in.
Right. Yeah, because that's the end. Is the alarm? Beatty looks at the address, and they go to the destination. Montauk realizes it's his own home. So I did totally skip it. All right. So they had a conversation, and Beatty threw out a lot of quotes. Right. It was a pretty in-depth conversation.
Pretty impressive little speech he gave. Yeah.
It was. It was quite
working?
a speech. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Let me put it up on the screen here. There we go. Look at that. And I think Beatty was basically trying to outsmart him. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah. I caught a few of these just from the Merchant of Venice there. And I was like, I wonder if every line is a quote. And I think I've actually just missed a few, because if you go through, it's all just, and I whispered, and you screamed. And then every other word is quotes from these here. So you see, you've got Agatha Christie, Sir Philip Sidney's Arcadia, Alexander Pope's essay is the essay on criticism.
Yeah.
We've got a bit of Shakespeare here. And this was with that line, on a dwarf on a giant's shoulders, the furthest can see the furthest of the two. And that was actually several, but it originated from an epic poem from 60 AD. Known as
okay, that does.
War.
That sounds old. Yeah, no, that does. Yeah.
Yeah. And and there's just a few other things like some folk tales that were adapted into a play. And yeah, if anyone wants to grab a screenshot of that. But yeah, it was just me being a bit nerding out.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I read a lot about. I just kind of went to the one quote from 60 AD. I read a lot of ancient Greek books and a lot of Roman stuff back in the day. Yeah, and there's an author, and I'll kill his name, Thucydides. Killed the name. Sorry about that. He wrote the first book, sort of first history book ever written, and it was like 500 BC, and it's the history of the Peloponnesian War. And it's actually a really interesting book, but it is one of the oldest books that we have that was written. Yeah, that was actually written and saved, not like carved in tablets and stuff like that, but it's about the history of the Peloponnesian War. It's the civil war between Athens and Sparta, which was kind of cool. Cool story, very interesting book. But anything from that time period has a very distinct feel to it, because it's such a different world back then, the way people spoke.
Yeah. No, they and that was the first time of ever writing things down. Like everything was the oral tradition, and through writing it down, we were able to see it a lot clearer and be a bit more critical and critiquing what was actually being said. It was one of the first experiences of that. Yeah. Go the dogs.
You can go ahead and keep going. We're just getting the dogs to be quiet here.
Yeah, no, you're right. But yeah, I just noticed there was a few quotes in there, and it turned out every line of Beatty's speech was a quote. And so yeah, I feel the robo dogs are coming for Daniel. It's
the robo dogs. I don't know why they're freaking out.
They want treats. Give us treats.
Janet's giving them treats, right? She ran over there and she's passing out the treats right now just to get them to calm back.
No, they're all right.
Yeah, I'm just going on mute.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they he's got every single. So I mean, here's the interesting thing is that Bradbury wouldn't have been able to just Google quotes from blah blah. He would have had to actually have all of these in his head already from things that he'd read or such. So that was something that really struck me, was that he's got these list of quotes, but he couldn't just go and do a quick Google search.
Right, couldn't just Google cool quotes or anything. Right, he actually had to know. I mean, as we talked about, he wrote the novel by renting a typewriter by the hour. So it's not like it's not like he just knew all. He couldn't just Google like, hey, give me some cool quotes. Hey, Chat GPT, I need some neat quotes for my book. Yeah, he actually had to know all this stuff, right? And seamlessly kind of integrated into the story.
Yeah. So it was the 50s. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was a different time, and good on him. As I said, good on him for having that. Because I think it's a great moment, as you kind of captured in the story, right? Where he, they're sort of having that argument of the value or not of having books, of reading books, and sir, I mean, I think one of the messages they're trying to say in the story is that people get confused, right? That, we can't give people two sides; they're going to get confused. But I think you have to. People have to look at it and be able to see both sides and understand, and then maybe not agree on everything with everybody, but at least you can understand. It's more about understanding both sides than I think agreeing on everything.
Yeah.
Well, that's part 2. I feel like we're going to do another night on this.
Yeah.
We've still got part 3.
And I thought it was going to be a quick one.
We thought this was just going to
be.
To
me, I just didn't feel like the book had a lot compared to Brave New World.
Compared to Brave New World, right.
Yeah, I felt like Brave New World was a lot more complicated than this book. Right. However, this book's taking us a little longer to go through.
Yeah. Are you good with doing another one, Jay?
Yeah.
Should we try for next week?
It's up to you guys.
Let's try for next week. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, absolutely. I know we were going to do it last week, but we weren't able to. Very on brand. Yeah. Brave New World. Yeah. No, we did. We did. Brave New World was great. Let's do this one next week. It's just part 3. It's not a huge amount, but I think it's more than we want to try to just kind of tear through tonight. Get into the ending and whatnot. Let's save it for next time. Theoretically, we could roll into Slaughterhouse 5, or would we want to just do it and then pick up Slaughterhouse 5 afterwards?
I'm fine with starting it if we don't run the hour and we've got another 20 minutes or so. Like, I'm okay with that. If Janet's okay with that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Excellent. So try to get through it. We were talking
Slaughterhouse
about it.
5.
Yeah, try to get through Slaughterhouse 5.
I'll do it.
Try to get through it.
You already passed chapter 2, Janet, so you should be all right, you said so.
Morty and I'll do it.
Lotus is saying the same thing. Now, Slaughterhouse 5 was hard to read. Yeah. So Belladonna, so next week we're going to get into part 3 of Fahrenheit 451. I think we'll finish it. I don't want to jinx us here, but and then depending on how long that takes, we'll either start Slaughterhouse 5 next week, or we'll start Slaughterhouse 5 maybe the week
Lotus
after
said
that.
First chapter 1 turned them off.
Turn them off, yeah.
I'm on chapter 2, and I was like, "Ooh, that chapter 1 was just." And so they say,
No, I mean, but it is. I think there's a lot. There's a good message in the book.
I just want to get to the aliens now.
Right, get to the aliens.
You said there's aliens. I just want to get to
alien
the
abduction
aliens
in it. There's alien abduction. There's time travel. It's got everything in it.
There's probing and
there's maybe. I'm not giving anything away. That's giving way too much. It's way too personal.
I've sometimes thought that the probing was just aliens taking our temperature. Like
could be.
When I was a kid, that's what that one went in your butt is what it is. Like in the 70s.
I don't know if you got a fever.
It's like taking my dogs to the vet.
All right. Oh my God.
All they do is walk up to them and they're like screaming. Like, in my butt.
Oh, Lotus wants to add a book to the list. Sure. Yeah, no, definitely, Lotus. You can add a book.
Sure,
we've got kind of a long list, but we can absolutely add a book. What do you have in mind?
Let's do it. Let's add.
Red Rising. Okay, let's see. Let me see. I've got a list.
I'm gonna guess it's better than Slaughterhouse 5. So
it's not a bad book. It might be a hard read.
Oh, okay.
Let me find my book list here. Let's see, Red Rising. I don't think I have that one.
Well, you're going to have to add to the list.
Yeah,
then.
no, I will add that to the list, and we can maybe move it up the list a little bit. It doesn't have to be next year. We could look at that soon. So yeah, we'll take a look at Red Rising. Maybe after 1984. Let me read it. Let's take a look at it. I don't know anything about it, but no, if you're interested in doing that, I think that would be fun. I mean, we're always open to add books, even Slaughterhouse-Five.
Oh, man.
Well, I know that I'm personally going to go and read more of Bradbury's stuff after this book. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and bring one back, right? If there's something you see, like Illustrated Man, I've never read, and I found that was one of his books, and that's supposed to be a really good book.
I read a couple of them, but I think my senior year in high school, I took like a contemporary literature thing because I liked English, so I took a lot of English, and I think we read like 2 or 3 of his books.
Okay. Yeah, probably. Cool. Yeah. Cool. Absolutely. For sure.
Yes.
All right. Well, Fahrenheit 451 Part 2. Part deuce is over.
Right. Part 3 is next week.
We'll do Part 3 next week. Thank you, Jay. As always.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for everybody in the comments.
Yeah.
Lotus, Belladonna. Thank you.
Yeah. Great.
All right. That'll be it.